on a second, what's that there for? I think that's a slide more suited for tomorrow night, don't you think? I mean, we could analyse the New South Wales State of Origin squad, but let's leave that for another time. And I think we should talk about something a lot more interesting, the red meat integrity system. So what do you think? Should we go to the next slide? Not sure how that ended up there, but anyway, let's get back to business. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, which is brought to you by a partnership between Integrity Systems Company and the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries. My name is Cherie Young, and I'm the Communications Manager at ISC, and I'll be your host tonight. This webinar is designed to help you better understand the red meat integrity system and how it works to ensure our industry continues to produce quality red meat that is safe to eat and fully traceable. Whilst tonight's webinar is about the integrity system for all species, there is a focus on the implementation of the sheep and goat electronic identification. So thank you very much for joining us and for submitting your questions during registration. We had quite a few come through, which was really great. We will do our best to answer those questions tonight into the Q&A box that you will see at the bottom of your screen. We have representatives on hand tonight from ISC and also from New South Wales DPI who are ready to answer any other questions that you might have. So please don't hesitate, pop them in that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen as they come to mind. Just wanted to also let you know this session is being recorded, and in the coming days we will be distributing the recording, the questions and a range of resources by email. So please keep your eyes open for those. Now, I just wanted to give you a bit of an idea about what we'll cover tonight. We will be starting by providing an overview of what ISC is and how the integrity system works together and what the objectives of the integrity system are. Then ISC's Quality and Compliance Manager, Elizabeth Bradley, will be joining to give you an update on the Livestock Production Assurance program. This will include an overview of the new self-assessment tool for accreditation and re-accreditation and the Harvested Rangeland Goat module, which is also new for the program. Next up, we'll have ISC's Operation Analyst George Basher, who will demonstrate key functions of the NLIS, including how to do property-to-property transfers of tag numbers. Then we'll have New South Wales DPI Sheep and Goat Traceability Director, Kiowa Fenner. She will conclude the session with a New South Wales specific update on key information related to sheep and goat eID. Now, please don't forget to put your questions in the Q&A box. We've got George, Elizabeth, Kiowa and Callum from our IC customer service team ready to answer your questions. So don't be shy to pop them in. So I will just now give you on the next slide a bit of high-level background about ISC, just in case you're sort of always a bit wondering, like, what is ISC and how does it fit into everything? So ISC was formed in 2017, and the chief task of the company is to manage the red meat integrity system. So the key focuses of the system are the on-farm assurance program through LPA and the animal identification and traceability of livestock. Ensuring that we meet these key requirements means Australia will continue to be able to access global markets. So ISC is guided by Safe Meat partnership between industry and government, and also the Supply Chain Task Force, which is a group made up of representatives from the peak industry councils. This next slide gives you a bit of a diagram of where ISC fits in. So you can see that we are a wholly owned subsidiary of MLA, and together with MLA, we provide services to the red meat industry. This next slide takes a bit of a deeper dive into ISC's program. So I just wanted to take a moment just to spell these out for you. So we have the National Livestock Identification System, which is Australia's system for identifying, tracing cattle, sheep and goats. It reflects our commitment to biosecurity, food safety, and provides Australia with that really important competitive advantage in a global market. All animals are identified with an accredited NLIS tag or device from their property of birth, And as animals are bought, sold, and moved along the supply chain, each movement is then recorded on the NLIS database. And using this information, the NLIS is able to provide a life history of an animal's movement. Now, the NLIS is underpinned by state and territory legislation, and it enhances Australia's ability to track livestock during disease and food safety incidents. The current NLIS system has existed now for 20 years, and a major project is now underway to develop a new and more user-friendly system. So that new system is due to be delivered by the end of June 2026, and that will definitely offer all of you a far more improved user experience and functionality. So we're really excited and looking forward to having that roll out. The other key program that we look after is the Livestock Production Assurance Program, or LPA. It's an on-farm assurance program, and it underpins market access for Australian red meat. It covers biosecurity, animal welfare, and food safety, and accreditation with LPA provides the tick of assurance for your product from producer to consumer. So it demonstrates the professionalism of the industry, and it again underpins our market access. So super important. Now, in the middle of all of that, we've got the LPA NVD, or the eNVD. So NVDs and eNVDs are the legal documents which communicate that food safety and treatment status of those animals as they move through the chain. What joins this all together is the Property Identification Code, or the PIC. Now, PICs are allocated by your state and territory departments of agriculture, and they identify a livestock producing property. So you need to have a PIC to register for the NLIS and for LPA. Incorporating that PIC into both of those systems is the only way that the traceability and the food safety can be managed at a national level. So for an industry that exports a very high proportion of product overseas, the assurance of a strong and effective national system is paramount. Now, I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview of the objectives of the system. So, the objectives of the integrity system. The way we see it, the key objectives are that the LPA and the NLIS are linked through that PIC system, the Property Identification Code system, to bring that quality, food safety, and animal welfare together. The next is that the LPA NVDs or eNVDs are used to prove that those LPA requirements are being met as the stock moves through the chain. Having those declarations and additional attachments held digitally in an eNVD means they stay with the animals on their whole journey and are not lost or damaged along the way, or become hard to read, as can be the case with paper forms. So another big objective is that as LPA accredited producers, you all feel supported and able to operate in accordance with the program, because ultimately that means Australian red meat is safe to eat, is of high quality, and remains in demand all over the world, which is exactly what we want. So before I hand you to Elizabeth to go through the LPA updates, I just wanted to leave you with my top 3 integrity takeaways. Number 1, main one, be sure to renew your LPA accreditation when it falls due. You'll be notified in advance by email, SMS, or by letter, so you will know when the time is coming up. You can use this process as an opportunity to make sure you are clear on what the LPA requirements are, and this includes having your biosecurity plan organised and all your records are up to date. And soon you'll be able to access a new personalised recommendations report after finalising your accreditation, but Elizabeth will be able to fill you in a little bit more on that when she's doing her section. So number 2, by keeping your accreditation up to date, this means you can also easily access the NVD system or the free eNVD system. Now, the eNVD system has undergone a fair bit of improvement over the last 12 months to make it more accessible to different types of users. So we encourage you to give it a go if you haven't tried to use it before. Just wanted to also point out that it is possible for you to SMS, text or email submitted consignments to your receivers if they don't actually use the EMVD yet. So I just wanted to make that clear because I think sometimes people don't quite understand that they can text them as well, which is a lot easier. It's always important to remember that your NVDs and your EMVDs are completely filled in and are accurate as well. Now, my last top tip, make sure you use species-specific NLIS approved devices to identify your livestock. This is really important, especially with sheep and goat eID around the corner. The big one here to remember is you need to use sheep devices on your sheep and goat devices on your goats. And to also, please ensure all your livestock transfers are completed on the NLIS. It is the receiver's responsibility to do this, but it is worth checking after you've moved stock so that you are sure your transfers have been made properly. So on that note, I'm going to pass you over to Elizabeth, who, funnily enough, is Brisbane-based, wearing blue. It's an interesting contradiction, but that's all good. We'll take it, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Cherie. I'll definitely be in maroon tomorrow. Maybe not the audience to hear that, but hi everyone. As Cherie mentioned, my name's Elizabeth and I'm the Manager of Quality Policy and Compliance with Integrity Systems Company. And one of my key roles is looking after the Livestock Production Assurance program. So as Cherie mentioned, LPA is around providing assurance through the supply chain around food safety of the meat that we eat as humans, animal welfare and biosecurity on farm. We also have the LPA NBD, which is a key document that moves those livestock through the supply chain, providing that valuable information around those market access requirements for your livestock. So just as an overview of why LPA is important, it really helps us sell our product effectively, putting money in your pocket as a livestock producer. So LPA has helped contribute to a nearly $75 billion industry that we have today and be able to access our global customers and markets. It also helps assure us with your on-farm practices and protect you as a producer for biosecurity on your property, and really underpins our food safety requirements as we turn our livestock into meat that we eat. We also have requirements of animal welfare in LPA, which is increasing demand for our consumers as well to understand that animals are ethically produced. And we have made some enhancements and changes to LPA over the last 20 years that it's been around as well to make sure it's fit for purpose and delivering the assurance that it needs to. So a key change that's effective very, very shortly, and we'll announce it formally through an email to you all as well, is a new set of standards and rules for the program. It's not too different from what it currently is. It just provides us with opportunities to make the program a little bit better. So the key change is that when you accredit for the first time or re-accredit at your cycle when you're full due, you'll actually go through a self-assessment tool, which is a lot easier and faster to complete than the quiz that's currently in the system. So that's a key change to encompass making LPA a little bit more user-friendly for you when you log in, but also trying to improve awareness and education as you go through that accreditation process. The new LPA rules also give us the opportunity to add in voluntary modules. So this is where producers can opt in to do different parts or different programs within the LPA program and effectively provide additional assurances around their production practices through LPA and the LPA NVD system. So our first module of the rules is the Harvested Rangeland Goat module, which I'll talk about in just a second, but there's definitely scope to increase it into different areas of production as well. The new LPA rules allow us to make additional declarations on EMVDs and link into other industry programs as well to kind of streamline those declarations for you. It also allows us to share audit outcomes from other programs that producers might be in to reduce duplication. So it allows us to start streamlining things and reducing the compliance burden for you. It also clarifies a lot of information as well, so roles, responsibilities, how we do audits, and also a complaints handling process, which has been absent from the program as well. So lots of exciting things to make the program better, not adding more impost onto you in any way, shape or form, but definitely improving how we operate the program for sure. A little bit about the self-assessment tool. So as I mentioned, it's replacing the quiz or the questionnaire or that's in the accreditation process at the moment. And it replaces it with a self-assessment, which basically producers can log in and answer the questions. There are no wrong answers, and effectively get a customized report at the end of it with links to resources and information about what you might need to look at for LPA requirements. So we're aiming to improve the learning experience, make it easier and quicker to do the process as well, and also give you that customized guidance and recommendations as well at the end. The LPA learning also remains available, so you can do that at any time, of course, and effectively we're aiming to help you more and as well as provide you with that guidance as well, personalised to your operations. So we're very excited to see that launch very soon. You'll hear formal comms about it in just a little bit. In terms of another key program change, we have voluntary modules. So I mentioned the Harvested Rangeland Goat module will start in October of this year as well. So this is in conjunction with the mandate for sheep and goat eIDs, and it's to ensure that harvested rangeland goats can continue to move without an NLIS eID being applied come the 1st of January next year. So this only relates to harvested rangeland goats. So that's goats that are captured from a wild state, are not born as a result of a managed breeding program, and not subject to animal husbandry procedures or treatments. So that definition hasn't changed from what it currently is. But in order to be able to move and capture these goats and move them without a tag, you'll need to be accredited in the Harvested Rangeland Goat voluntary module. Important thing to note here too as well is that movements of harvested rangeland goats must be to a processor for slaughter or directly to one registered goat depot. If those movements aren't happening in that direction, those goats need to be tagged with an eID. So it is an approval process that the state governments have involvement in as well. So it's important that you understand if you are capturing harvested rangeland goats, you need to seek accreditation in this module. Registered goat depots are the same as they currently operate at the moment, so they need to have approval from the state governments and also moving them onto a processor as well. So from the 1st of January, it'll be a requirement to have this in place to move harvested rangeland goats. We'll have the ability to apply for the module and accreditation available from October. So you have time to order books or get familiar with the EMVD system for them. So effectively, you need to have LPA accreditation as a goat producer in the first instance. You then need to apply for your harvested rangeland goat accreditation through your LPA account. That application will go to your relevant jurisdiction, so New South Wales in this case, and they'll review that application to make sure that you're in a harvested area and that PIC's eligible. And then if you're approved, you'll be required to pay an accreditation fee to cover that accreditation, and then you'll be able to access and purchase the LPA new NVD, which is covering harvested rangeland goat movements as well. So it is an approval process. You do have to pay a fee, and you will have to have an audit every accreditation cycle to participate, because moving goats without an eID is definitely a benefit and a privilege. So that's the process, and there'll be more communications and webinars and things about it coming up as well. So if you have any questions, please ask them now while we're on to answer them for you. So now I've talked about the changes to the program. I'll run through just the LPA program requirements that all producers need to adhere to. So there are 7 different modules or elements of the LPA program. So that refers to property risks, animal treatments, stock foods and pasture treatments, preparing your livestock for dispatch, livestock transactions and movements, which is all your LPA, NVDs and NLIS requirements, your on-farm biosecurity requirements, and adherence to the animal welfare standards and guidelines. So I'm going to walk you through just at a high level the key points about what you need to do to comply with LPA in your operation before we talk about NLIS requirements. So the first element or module of LPA is property risk. So the idea here is to have a farm map and identify any risks that could contaminate your livestock, and just jot down effectively any ways in which you prevent them from becoming contaminated. So it could be as simple as fencing something off or removing something that's in the way. So it doesn't have to be complicated. We have templates available to help you do it. You only really need to do it once, and then make sure that it's current. And other than that, it's not an impost. It's quite simple to do. Having it on file is important to make sure that if you do have an issue with something, once that animal goes to processing, that you've got that documentation there to support your on-farm practices. The second module within LPA is around your animal treatments. Again, very, very important in terms of food safety. So animal treatments, including HGPs for cattle, need to have really good records, which backs up your claims on that NVD as you move them through the supply chain. So keeping good records, including your withhold periods, your batch numbers, the chemical names, the dates, are really, really important. We have templates, or you can use your farm management software or keep it in a diary on farm. It doesn't matter how you keep them, but records are really important. They're important so that when you do go to consign animals, that you have that information there ready for you and you can answer that NVD correctly. If you are using chemicals off label, especially in the goat industry, getting veterinary authorization to do that and having a record of that is really important. Clean and calibrated equipment, staff training. If you do have cattle with HGPs, putting a triangular earmark on them. And also if you do have broken needles, which isn't super common, but if there are, making sure you can identify those animals if need be as well. The third element within LPA is around stock foods, and basically an introduced feed that you're bringing into the property, or pasture treatments or chemical use that you might be using. So very similar to animal treatments, we need to keep really good records and make sure that any withhold periods or exposure to pasture or food within withhold periods is declared on outgoing NVDs, so that food safety risk can be minimised. Keeping good training records or having a chemical users course if you are applying chemicals yourself, keeping really good records, following label directions, making sure that you know what pasture has been treated with what chemicals and making sure you're adhering to those withholds is really important. If you are buying in feed, making sure you're getting a commodity vendor declaration as well, or something just as equivalent to cover your risk of what you're actually bringing in and feeding those livestock is important. So again, it's all about having records to back up the declarations you're making on your national vendor declarations. Element number 4 of LPA is around your preparing livestock for dispatch. So this encompasses your fit to load requirements and any curfews you need to do with feed and water. More important with cattle, obviously, with the effluent requirements, but making sure you're using reputable transport, keeping records of who's taking your livestock, and LPA NVD filing is really important. And making sure you've got good loading facilities as well to maintain that welfare requirement. If you need it, we have the MLA's Is It Fit to Load guide. I'm sure there's state resources as well available on fit to load requirements as well. Making sure that you're using good reputable transporters and inspecting vehicles for cleanliness and suitability is also important as well. And obviously making sure that truck drivers got a copy of that NVD as they drive away, or access to it if it's electronic as well. The 5th module or element of LPA covers off on livestock transactions and movement. So this is all around completing your NVDs, having copies of NVDs if you're receiving livestock onto your property, and also adhering to your NLIS requirements as well. So we do audit all of this at LPA audits, which is important that you can get audited on NLIS requirements. So if you're buying in livestock, get a copy of the LPA NVD and read it and make sure you understand if there's any withholds or treatments on those animals. Keep a copy of it for its lifetime while you have it on your property as well, really important. As you consign animals, make sure those NVDs are completed properly, all the questions are answered correctly, and you've got those records to back up those declarations. It's got to be signed, it's got to be legible, and filled out in full. So there's that traceability there around that consignment. Making sure that animals are identified with NLIS devices before they leave the property, legal requirement under biosecurity legislation, and making sure if you are receiving livestock onto your property that you're recording that movement onto your PIC within 2 days of their arrival. So that's, again, a legislative requirement. And if you're using an agent or a third party to do that movement, making sure that you check it or requesting an upload ID to make sure that they've actually done it properly. So really important around those requirements for traceability and that biosecurity through the supply chain as well. And if we didn't say it enough, just as an overview, making sure with livestock movements, updating that NLIS database when you receive them onto your pick within 2 days of their arrival is really critical for livestock traceability and upholding biosecurity, especially if we have a disease outbreak or a food safety incident we need to investigate. Also completing LPA and VDs if you're moving livestock off your property, making sure it's full, complete, and also getting copies of them if you're moving livestock onto your property as well. So really key critical requirements around tracing animals. Now, biosecurity is just as important on your own property as it is through traceability through the supply chain. So having a biosecurity plan is a requirement within LPA. So once you have a biosecurity plan, you can fill it out in any template. You can upload it online. You can complete it in LPA portal. You can use the farm biosecurity one. If you've got one through your government agency, that's fine too. It's all good. You just need one. Make sure that it's reviewed frequently or as things change. Make sure your staff have access to it if you have staff. It needs to cover off on things entering your property, how you control diseases, risks, do monitoring. So the templates kind of step you through everything, give you some tips and tools as well. Really important to know who to call if you do suspect an issue. It's better to report something and talk about it and it be nothing than not say anything and it be something. So really important to have a documented biosecurity plan. And if you need any help, there's loads of resources available at different things. We've got lots of LPA templates and resources and videos about how to do it. Now, the last requirement in LPA is around animal welfare. So in Australia, we have an agreed standards around animal welfare. So they're the animal welfare standards and guidelines, which are applicable to each species. So there's one for cattle, one for sheep, and one for goats. The requirements in LPA are relatively straightforward. So one is to have a copy of the standards and guidelines applicable to you. They're free, they're online. You can have them accessed on your computer or you can print them off if you like. We have an LPA learning course as well on the standards and guidelines, which you need to complete as part of accreditation, and make sure any staff involved in livestock husbandry are also trained in the relevant standards as well. And that's all to ensure that you can follow the minimum standards for animal welfare, which is a requirement of LPA and has been since 2017. So that's LPA, and that was probably a whirlwind, but we do have loads of fact sheets, checklists, resources available, and we can always help you if you need it. So please don't feel like you can't contact us and ask for help as well. Now, on to NLIS. So as an overview, NLIS, as Sheree mentioned, has sort of 3 different elements to it. One is those PICs that the state government or New South Wales issues to you as a livestock owner. The second is around the livestock tags or the eIDs. And so having a PIC means that you can order and purchase eIDs. And the third is around livestock movements being recorded in the NLIS database. So the state governments upload the PICs to the database. You can then buy tags from the using your PIC, and then you can also move livestock through different PICs in the central database. So those 3 things work together to enable traceability of cattle, sheep, and goats in Australia. Now, some key things around livestock identification. All animals, so cattle, sheep, and goats, need to be identified with an approved NLIS device before they move off a PIC. And it has to remain with the animal for its lifetime to enable that lifetime traceability. Of course, if a device falls out or it breaks, you can reapply a device, a breeder device if it's on the PIC it was born on, or a post-breeder device if it's no longer on its PIC of birth. It's always a good tip to keep some replacement devices if you need them, and some post-breeder tags if you have introduced livestock onto your PIC, and replace devices regularly so you don't get stuck if you're about to transport them off your property. There's colouring systems for sheep and goats, which is the year of birth colour, or pink if it's a post-breeder. And then for cattle, it is white for breeders and orange for post-breeders as well. So keeping that in mind in terms of the colouring systems. Now, Sheree did mention at the very start around making sure you're ordering species specific. So cattle's a bit easy because they're quite specific for cattle, but sheep and goats, it's the same physical tag, but we actually have a different microchip number, and the numbers printed on the outside are different to make them species specific. So if you do have, you're ordering sheep and goat tags, make sure that you're ordering sheep and you're ordering goat and what you need. and you're checking if you do have both species that the number or the letter printed on the tag matches what it should. So for sheep, you should see an S or a T, and for goats, you should see a K or an L, depending on what colour it is. So keeping that in mind is really important to make sure you're applying the right device to the right animal. Just as an example, we've got some pictures of approved NLIS electronic identification for sheep and goats. So up on screen, we've got a different array of different tags. So we've got wraparound tags, we've got a leg band, we've got a button tag, and we have a dual pin tag as well, lots of different types. It's important to make sure you have the right applicator. It's important to make sure that you follow the application instructions. And if a certain tag doesn't work, make sure you contact the manufacturer or supplier to have a chat with them about it, and also making sure that if you do experience lots of retention issues, then maybe have a look at a different type of tag that might be more suitable for your environment as well. So, and the third requirement around NLIS is just that movement recording, which is really quite critical. So as a start, making sure you have an NLIS account and can actually do some movement recording in the database. Cherie mentioned it before, but person receiving livestock is responsible for doing that NLIS transfer, which George will show you in just a minute. If you're selling or purchasing through a sale yard, they'll do that transfer. Feedlots and processors will move them off your pick because they're receiving those animals. Auctions Plus, if you're buying through them, don't complete transfers, so don't get caught out with that one. And if you do use agents or third parties, make sure you get that upload ID to make sure that that transfer has been done. You can also record the NVD serial number in each NLIS transfer, which is mandatory in New South Wales, I believe, to make sure that you're linking that NVD movement with that NLIS transfer as well. So really bolstering that traceability. Cherie, I think that's me now, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was excellent. Now we will move into the demonstration. So George Basher is here. He's going to take you through the key steps for the NLIS. Now, other thing, great questions coming in. Just try to keep them to questions, not statements. That's just really helpful for our team to be able to answer. So I will now pass on to George. And remembering this is all recorded, so you can just watch and we'll send you the video and you can watch it again if you need. Thanks, George.
Thank you, Cherie. So yeah, my name's George. I've been working with NLIS now for 25 years from inception. So hopefully I can guide you through. So today we'll go through the NLIS database. We'll log in. We'll run some a transfer and we'll run some reports. So the first thing is to log in, and we'll log in. When you see NLIS.com, you see this new login page. We'll use MyMalay to log in. And the advantage of MyMalay is you can link multiple accounts. And I'll show you some of my accounts. So you create a MyMalay account first, and then you're able to log in. MyMalay is a bit of a dashboard and allows you to link your LPA account, your MSA account, NLIS account. And I've already linked my NLIS account. But you can link in other things like LPA, MSA, ENVD, my feedback. So we'll click onto here. Continue to NLIS. And these are all the accounts that I have linked to my account. And they're all my test accounts. So we're going to log in as a producer today. Click on login. And this is your typical home page. So the first thing is you can change the species. So if you're working with cattle, you do that. Today, we're going to be working with sheep, individual, or goat individual. And they're both the same. But today, we'll just do the sheep individual. The first thing is up here, there's a little help button. Click on the help tools. And these are all the guides that we have available. Now, some of them are old and we are updating these, but there's a whole heap of tech tips or user guides or how to. So you click on any of these and they open up. So I click on device list. And there's a tech tip to run a report on looking at active tags on your property devices. So just a range of different reports you can run. So back to help tools, there's a whole heap of them down here. We'll close them down. Go back to the home page. And the first thing I do, and for this purpose in particular, I'll just hide the header, which gets rid of this big blue heading. So click on hide header. This gives us more real estate to play with. This change button is where you can click on change and update your details. Typically your email address. So you may want to go back and change your email address or update it. Go back home. So just be mindful that we need to communicate with you quite often, and the best way to do it is by email. Quickest, cheapest, easiest way to do it. And when you use the database, every time you hit any interaction, it will send you an email confirming what you've done. So keep your emails up to date. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to go through and do a transfer. So we go, I want to, and there's a few options. There's the livestock moved off my property, sheep and goats, which is what we're going to do, or on my property. So this is what we're going to do. As both Cherie and Elizabeth said, it's the responsibility of the person receiving the livestock to do the transfer. And one of the last things that Elizabeth mentioned was if the agent does it or says that they're going to do it, make sure they give you a receipt number called an upload ID, which I'll show you in a minute. So today we're going to move some sheep onto my property. So we click on this one. Click go. And those SA camelids are llamas and alpacas, South American camelids. So they're also in the database. So we're going to type in the details, usually the easiest way to do it. And there's 6 fields, very simple. In this field here, you type up or copy and paste, like I've just done. I've just copied and pasted in a list of tags. And you notice that I've used the visual tag number on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I've used the RFID, different tags, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 10 tags all up. And you can just use one or the other. You can just use the RFID if you have a scanner. If you've only got a few and you want to eyeball the tag, you can write the tag numbers down. A lot of times people who do that make a mistake, if there's lots of numbers. So just be careful. Take a photo with your camera, with your phone, and then you can transcribe a number. But here you can enter in the tag number. From a reader, copy and paste is the easiest way. Where are they going to? They go to my property QDZZ. These are my test picks, and they're my Queensland test picks. That's where they're moving to. They're coming from QBZZ. So they're my 2 properties. I think the last thing Elizabeth did mention was enter in the NVD waybill. So we're entering in the waybill number. They're moving today. And I noticed a few people ask questions in the Q&A. There's 12 head. I know there's only 10 tags, but there's 12 head. 2 of the sheep I purchased when I moved on to my property didn't have electronic tags because they were born last year. They're born before the mandatory date. So this gives us 2 things. It gives us the individual 10. So we know 10 tag numbers, device numbers, and there were 12 head all up. You continue. It always gives you a confirmation page. Is this what you want to do? I'm going to move them to this property, from this property, with this waybill number. The total head's 12. There's the numbers. We hit send. And this is live on the live database. It gives us the upload IDs. Gives us 2 upload IDs in this case because we're doing the individual movement of 10 devices and the mob-based movement of 12 devices. So both are done. An email is sent to this email address. Says when the database is processed, you get an email. Now, while in this page, you click on View My Transaction History. This is going to show us all the things I've done on the system in this date range. So today, and these are the two tag upload IDs that I just did. So we see there's an error and there's a warning. And this is every time you do it, it either comes complete, which means there was no issue whatsoever, or there was error and a warning. Here we have an error and a warning. We click on the error and it says this device is already registered to the PIC you are transferring to. I had this tag number in there twice as a test, so you can see what I was talking about. It's in there twice. It's saying I can't move this to QDZZ 3333 because you previously moved it. And we'll click on the warning. And it tells us an identical movement already exists. So I've already done a movement with 12 head from this PIC to this PIC. So it's not a problem. It's simply saying you've done it, and you may move 12 on. You may have a little truck that can only fit 12 animals on, so it does it a few times. You're using the same NVD, which is that 5555 4444. So simply saying we've done it, but we've noticed that you've done the same thing before. So we let the transfer go through and sends out a warning. So the major difference between an error and a warning is an error, we cannot do it. And in this case, because the animal was already transferred. So we go back home, back to this page. We want to look at other transfers we've done previously. So what's happened in the last 3 days, 14th, 15th, and 16th. Some more transactions. We'll go back to the beginning of the month. So there are all the transactions. And the transactions are either an upload of new data or simply asking queries like these are. So that's a very simple way to enact a transfer. And remembering it's mandatory for the receiver to do it. Sale yards, auctions plus, those people don't do them. Some stock agents may do it for you, so you can ask them to do it, but it's generally your responsibility. Then the next part is some reports, and from this home page, there's notify the database of, and these are transactions. And a transaction is where you're changing data. In other words, you move an animal, set an animal to dead, set a device to inactive, putting statuses on them like lost. So these are actions, and down here is a list of the different reports. Search the PIC register is one of the most popular on reports. Click on this one. If you know a property, and we'll use the ones I've been using. If you receive an email or an NVD, you want to find someone's PIC, you can search by their name, the state, the town, or search by PIC, and there's the details for this particular PIC. So if you need to find a PIC, you can do a reverse search by surname, name, a few other criteria. They're very popular to use, especially if you're using trying to fill out an NVD. So other reports we'll go through. View generator reports. And this will give us a list of all the reports I can run. What we're going to look at, we could look at two reports. One of them is this one here. I've purchased some devices. I want that list. I want to export it. So we go devices purchased. Now it's for, I have two properties linked to my account. We'll look at device purchase for this PIC. And what I purchased this year. 1,000 tags. Gives me the species. These are sheep. And these are sortable. All these headings are sortable. The PIC, RFID, NLIS ID. So we sort on species. They're all sheep. I can sort by this number. So there's the first tag. Scroll down. all. And this is going to now give me all 1,000 on the screen. And if I want the RFID and the NLIS number, you just do export. And use the RFID and NLIS ID. You can open the file. There's the file there. You can save that as an Excel file or a multitude of different files. So there's your list of tags. Some people call that the tag bucket file, and it's used by software if you're using your software. You go back home. View generate all reports. There we go. This is the last report I'll show you. We want to see what's been transferred onto my property. We just transferred animals onto this property, QDZZ. So if I bought some animals, and there's the 9, there was supposed to be 10, one had an error, so there's the 9. If you buy animals and the agent says, or the person who sold them to you said that they've done the transfer, you can log in and look at it yourself. So whilst I transfer it onto my property under the reports, select the date range, click go. And there's a list of your animals transferred onto your pick. So I've just gone back to the start of the year. 21 animals. So that's, in a nutshell, how you do transfers. We go back to the home page. If you want to do goats, exactly the same thing. Goat individual. You want to transfer onto my property, it's the same process. So for the goat, the sheep, identical process. The reports are identical. Click on home. And like I said, go to the help tools. They are a little bit out of date, but use the help tools and you can run reports and look at how to do functions, that is how to do transfers, and also how to run reports. And remembering the reports are always sortable and exportable. So you can export that data into Excel. If you've ever been audited, you need to show evidence. You go to the exact same thing, go in here, run reports. You want to see what's moved onto your property, and you simply show evidence by saying, you asked me to do the last transfer of those 9 head, there they are there. So you can give them evidence that they are on your pick. And that's it for me.
Fantastic. Thanks, George. That was great. So now we have Kiowa Fenner from New South Wales DPI. Kiowa is going to take you through some specific New South Wales info for sheep and goat eID. Interestingly, Kiowa is in New South Wales, but is wearing maroon. So there we go. She's going for the maroons tomorrow night. I think we've got that clear. I'll hand over to you, Kiowa. Thank you.
Thanks, Cherie. Yes, good evening, everyone. As Cherie said, my name's Kiowa Fenner. I'm the Director of the Sheep and Goat Traceability Team here in New South Wales, leading the implementation of sheep and goat eID across the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development and the local land services. So we actually have 2 teams. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the country on which we land is that of traditional owners, and we extend our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So we have 2 teams within the Sheep and Goat eID program. The first one is the New South Wales Sheep and Goat eID team. So there's 5 of us within that team, myself, a project manager, communications officer and 2 industry liaison officers. And we're working very much on that statewide and working with processors and sale yards in relation to implementation regarding equipment and installation of processes in relation to those. We also have a new team which has just recently come on board at the end of May. So we currently have 8, there will be 9 LLS officers specifically in relation to sheep and goat eID, and they'll be out and about in regions for those that are in New South Wales, out and about spreading the word, running workshops and providing assistance where people need it. So what is an eID? So both Elizabeth and George have covered a bit off on this. So an eID is a device that has 2 particular numbers. So the first number is what we call the RFID number, very similar to a microchip that you might have in your pet cat or pet dog. And it's made up of some unique numbers, both the manufacturer and then a serial number. We then also have the NLIS identification number, which is printed on the tag. And as explained earlier, it does have meaning. So it will include your property identification code, then the manufacturer, so the type of tag that you've bought. As has been highlighted, really important to make sure you do buy the correct tag. So whether it's a sheep breeder, sheep post breeder, goat or ghost post breeder tag, and then the year that the device was made, and again, then a serial number. So when you purchase these tags, you'll be all this information will be uploaded for you by the tag manufacturer automatically to the NLIS database, and you'll be provided with what's called a bucket file, and George spoke about that in his presentation. What's good to know is you can continue to have your property identification or any information, property name, surname, whatever that you currently have on your mob-based or visual tags. You can continue that across onto your eID tag. As Liz pointed out earlier, there are the year of birth colours in relation to tags, and it is voluntary in New South Wales in relation to whether you choose to use that year of birth. Highly encouraged, but not mandatory as it is in some other states. So why adopt eID and why now? Back in September 2022, there was a decision made by all the jurisdictions across Australia for the need to implement a stronger, more vigorous traceability system in relation to sheep and goats. There'd been one in relation to cattle since 2003 using eID. So this was just a natural progression to go from that mob-based system to an individual animal-based system. So the initiative is going to improve accuracy and timeliness in identifying sheep and goats following exotic outbreaks and diseases or residual food safety issues. And that in turn is going to reduce the cost and the risks from such incidents, not only to industry, but also to government and the costs associated with that. It's going to position Australia's sheep and goat industries at the forefront, meeting stringent international standards and creating profitable export opportunities. And it's going to provide consumers with confidence in products that they're eating and fostering a trust in and loyalty in relation to Australian produce. And it's also, we're in a world where we're having more and more demand in relation to consumers and the conscientiousness in relation to what they're eating. So this is also going to be able to provide some support in relation to that. So why eID? Why is it better than the visual system? So back in 2020, there was an exercise conducted both across New South Wales and Victoria and a number of other jurisdictions. In that period, the aim of the exercise was to see how many sheep that we could trace in a 24-hour period for the previous 30 days. So in that particular exercise, using eID, we were able to capture 96% of the sheep within that 24-hour period. Without eID, we were only able to trace 70% of those sheep and every one of those movements for the previous 30 days. That's not to say that we weren't able to trace nearly 100% of all the sheep either using with or without eID, over an extended period of time. This was specifically in relation to meeting international standards in relation to the 24-hour period. What I can say is be able to get, and I think they got to about a 98% rate for the without EID, but it took them nearly 8 months to be able to get to that last tag. So you can imagine that if we have something like a food illness, a food safety issue, or if we have an animal disease, the issues in relation to not being able to lock down animals identified where they've been from day one takes up to 8 months. The risk of spread is a lot higher. So the benefits of using EID, I have covered off on this previously, very much so that national market access, so traceability and biosecurity. So being able to ensure, being an industry here in New South Wales, we are so reliant on our export markets in relation to both sheep meat, wool and goat meat. We need to be able to ensure that we can get back into those markets as soon as possible if for any reason those market borders are closed on us. But it also has the opportunity on farm with a number of on-farm benefits, including the ability to manage individual animals better, to make better decision-making in relation to your production system, the opportunity for branding, and this is going to be a really important one going forward. You've probably heard of MSA in relation to beef, and I know MLA is doing a heap of work in relation to MSA in relation to sheep. And this is going to provide a really huge opportunity for producers to work with those particular processes to be able to get maximum return on investment regarding those particular branding opportunities. Also reduces the use for needing to manually handle livestock while in the yard. And also that improved data integration. So the ENVD going forward, once it's all linked up in 2026, it's going to be an amazing tool that we'll be able to use. How is it being supported? So federally, there was a $46.7 million supporting package that includes both the NLIS upgrade, which both Liz and George referred to earlier. And then there's also been funds provided to each of the jurisdictions in relation to that. In New South Wales, the New South Wales government has provided $41 million support package to industry, for all sectors, so producers, sale yards, processors, agents. That includes both equipment. It will include the 76-cent tag discount program, which will start at the end of the year and run for nearly 12 months. And we're also currently rolling and will continue to roll out free EID training and education. So what do you need to do here in New South Wales? So from the 1st of January, any lambs or kids that are born on or after the 1st of January will need to have an approved EID device attached before leaving the property. And all producers must record a movement onto their property by scanning each sheep or goat and recording these into the NLIS database. So George spoke about property-to-property movements and the responsibility of those, that it is of those people that it's coming onto their property if it's not going through a sale yard system. So what does this mean if you've already got lambs on the ground from this year? They don't need to be tagged with an EID device. We encourage you to consider whether you're going to start using EID devices this year, but it's not necessary. So if you've got anything on the ground now or going on the ground this year, it won't need to be tagged with an EID device until 2027. So that's this one here. So all sheep and goats, regardless of age, will need to have an EID device prior to leaving their property. So while they're on your property, they don't need to be tagged. So you can make a decision as an individual and in whatever works best for your particular enterprise as to when you're going to do that. Are you going to do it at marking? Are you going to do it as they go up the loading ramp? We don't really care as long as it's done before they leave your property. And again, there'll be the need for that ongoing record being uploaded to the NLIS database for those that will have when they have their tags in them. What's happening with other parts of the industry at the moment? So actually on the 1st of July, processors started scanning. So there's actually quite a considerable amount of tags, eID devices already in the system, coming in both from Victoria, but also a number of New South Wales producers are already using it. So they've started scanning and just trying to iron out any issues that they may have before we get the surge of tags going through the system in January. And then sale yards, goat depots and agents will need to start doing transfers also from that 1st of January 2025. So what changes do you need to make? So Liz provided some updates in relation to the harvested rangeland goats. The tag-free pathways will be in place if you follow the new HRG accreditation process. So just make sure that you jump online either on the ISC or contact the Goat Industry Council of Australia, and they'll be able to provide you more information in relation to that. And basically for sheep and farmed goats, the only change is really the type of tag. So we're moving from that visual tag to an individual eID device. So what do we need to know about the devices? You can only use one NLIS device per animal. It's an offence to remove an approved NLIS device or tag unless it's not functioning. You can replace lost or non-reading devices. eID devices are species specific, which we've spoken about already. So just be very careful when you're doing those first lot of orders in the coming months that you check that if you're buying them through the merchandiser that they've actually filled out the form and you are getting sheep if you've got sheep and not goats if you've got sheep. The device, unlike cattle, can be attached to any ear. So as my dad used to say, use in the right, women are always right, so use in the right. So again, whatever your market or whatever you use is good for you, continue that. And as I've said previously, you can use year of birth, but it's not mandatory in New South Wales. There's a number of different devices, and Elizabeth showed a really great slide of all the different approved devices. And if you're not sure what is approved, by all means, jump on that ISC website. There's some great information on those. But just make sure that the device is NLIS compliant, that it's the right type of tag for your operation. So you have a grazing environment, you have a browsing environment, you know, the type of ear that you may be putting it in. So, you know, if it's a thick ear, do you need to be using a pin that's a bit thicker than a thin ear? Making sure the placement is correct, making sure that the applicator is correct. So you may not need to buy a new applicator, but that's something you really need to check with your manufacturers. Because there are some even, you know, going from the eID device, going from the visual device to the eID device, the applicators are not aligned to each other and they will actually damage the microchip. So just make sure that you are using the correct applicator in relation to the tag that you're putting in. Incorrect application can damage the device. And I've already said about using the correct applicator. Make sure that you allow room for the ear to grow if you're you are applying the tags at marking or weaning. Make sure that you've got clean equipment and make sure that correct placement of devices is essential for the retention. We actually find that usually incorrect placement is usually the main reason, or incorrect use of the correct applicator are the main reasons for retention issues. Equipment. Do you need equipment? You may not, but don't rush out. Understand what it is that you need to be doing in relation to your particular enterprise. If you're selling through a processor, directly to a processor, or selling directly to a sale yard and they're your main mechanisms, or buying directly through a sale yard, you probably don't need any more equipment than the tags and the applicators. So just have a look and see what it is that you're doing. There's some great resources on the GPIRD website for sheep and goat eID that walks you through. It's a bit of a decision tree as to whether you might need to buy additional equipment. So I really encourage you to have a think about that. I see there's been lots of questions in the chat in relation to support and the prices of tags. The Minister did announce a couple of months ago that we have a $10.2 million discount program. That'll be opening up on the 1st of November. It will be for white tags only, so for 2025. And that particular program, the discount will be applied at the point of purchase. So there'll be minimal or no paperwork that will be required by producers to be able to access that. I did mention that we have a number of resources on the DPI website. One of the other ones is our AgTech catalogue. So this is a fantastic, if you're not sure what you need, what the types of tags are out there, types of equipment, jump online, have a look at this website. Some fantastic information there in relation to helping producers and livestock owners get some information in relation to the equipment. And if you have your phones handy, by all means, scan the QR code, heaps of resources here, lots of information. So thank you, everybody, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kiowa. That was fantastic. I hope everyone has enjoyed that. Before you all leave, thank you very much for joining us. But before you all sign off for the evening, I would really love it if you could fill in our survey in the chat. If you take a moment, then you give us really valuable feedback to help us for our next webinars that we run. But in the meantime, thank you for your time. Thank you to all involved this evening. And we'll be getting that pack out to you very soon with the recording and all of the other resources in there. Yep, we're going to leave the Q&A is open there because I think we have got a couple more questions to answer. So we'll just keep it open for a little couple more minutes if you have got other questions that you'd like to ask, because there definitely was a lot covered in this session. But yeah, hope you all got something out of that anyway, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Good night.